All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Wonder Egg Priority, episode 12. Caleb,
right.
what would you say is the chance forecast of getting time travel by the time the show's over?
This one, not enough cocaine was snorted.
Not even like a 12% chance, maybe?
I think we're only at like a 6% chance.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
I think we're more along the lines of like a fourth wall break than
gotcha.
Actual
time travel. But you are telling me there's a chance.
There is a chance.
Yeah.
But I don't think so at all. No.
Yep. But this next episode, what will we get into? We have a big bad and mini bosses and such. Will this episode have continuity to the previous episode? Who's to say?
Bring the girls all together, maybe for some kind of dramatic power friendship moment.
Hopefully none of them die, because that's on the table for a couple of them potentially right now.
But yeah, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this train wreck. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Yeah. I am not drunk enough to make any sense of this.
I don't think any amount of alcohol could make this make sense.
So, okay.
You need
this
something
is not
stronger.
the final thing of the show, though.
That's what blows me away.
So you know what I think it is? Because the next thing is technically not an episode. It's like a thing that came like way later.
Okay.
After the show was like done or what have you.
Right. Which, yeah.
And it's a double feature apparently that has a bunch of recap in the beginning.
Right.
What I'm guessing it is it's basically we're going to tie things up a little bit and tease like future story or what have you.
Oh God.
But
yeah.
What I think is maddening about this, absolutely maddening, is that just enough of the like buzzword twists were pulled out here to where I'm like, wait a minute, like they're actually trying, like on some level.
Yeah, right.
They are trying, but
it's not much.
It's not working at all. Like,
it's not working, and it is like it feels like the okay, this won't work. So I'm just gonna sort of scribble some things here in the script to be like
parallel worlds, mirrored versions of the protagonist, time travel. You saved yourself from the future past with your fast past future.
Yeah, literally, we had time travel. like. This, you know what this feels like, and it's kind of meta that it feels like this. Maybe it was intentional. AI writes a script of an anime episode.
Oh my god! All is as Frill wills it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is all according to Frill.
Yep. See,
the will of Frill.
That's what the final episode is going to be. It's going to be Frill stepping out of the screen and then making the anime. And that because like when we heard that there was like recap in the final episode and it was like a double length thing, but there was like half of it was like recap. What that made me think is like, oh wait, oh shit, is this going to be one of those things where they try and say this was what we were planning the whole time by giving like an episode's worth of recap to splice out specific bits to make it seem like it makes sense?
Okay. Let's think about this in the most trying to somewhat understand this. I think that
I don't know, man.
No.
My brain can take that.
Let me roll with this here.
All right, yeah.
What you think?
I like what you're.
I saved herself.
Yes.
Right.
Which is
Koito was not real, but was a projection she used to understand the fact that a parallel universe version of her saved herself.
I have no idea.
Okay,
because
but hold on. If that's the case, then we have to question whether or not any of this is actually real.
Wait, backtrack.
Because we went so absurd that none of it makes sense, right?
Well, so
the only explanation is that none of it is actually fully, correct.
All right, okay. This is going to be a little bit to unpack. Usually in a situation like this, you don't want to be adding new elements when you get to the end of a story. Because,
What? No.
Yeah, no, I know.
No.
Mind-blowing, right?
No.
But generally you don't want to do that because then you have to make sure that the audience fully understands everything that's going on and then also wants those things to be introduced in the first place, right?
Well.
You know, but so
I mean,
but the thing is that this show clearly has tapped into the beyond and doesn't care about any of that shit. Those are juvenile guidelines for lesser.
Make fun of paths and stuff. This is
like the fact that what you're saying about Koito, like normally I would say no, that's clearly not the case, right? Because no one the series, even if I didn't understand what they were doing with Koito in this episode, I would say they're clearly not trying to introduce and sort of like flip things around to something so outlandish as that in what is almost the final episode with as little explanation. But this show, let me tell you, it is not perturbed by things like that. It will not balk at preconceptions of what can and can't be done.
No,
so
not at
while
all.
I don't follow the logic, I don't even know how you got that out of the episode. My mind was kind of a mess, and I absolutely believe that could have been something that the creators are actually intending to do.
I think that in some level this taps into the insane part of my psyche enough to where I'm like, oh yes, Naruhodo, I understand.
No, and I will say, writing is basically societally approved insanity, right?
Well, yeah, but that's specifically with the idea of writing different characters.
Sure,
that's
but
not usually with writing plots.
No, that is an excellent point.
You pull yourself out of yourself, and you go into the headspace of another character entirely, and you write them.
Sure. Let me put it another.
Them.
Let me put it another way. The best writing often comes about from that kind of just mad chaos, and then it's the job of the editor to then basically say, all right, now we'll try and shape it into something that we can work with, right?
Yeah. The editor doesn't do all that.
No, it doesn't. They don't do all of that.
Help with it,
right? Yeah. But the writer being able to go into that place of chaos can be very helpful and important because that's how you can get off the wall wacky ideas.
Very
right?
true.
The thing is that when you're in a weekly production, like anime release schedule, the amount of time that they probably had to be like, all right, here's some chaos, get it into some kind of structure, was probably like nothing because
okay,
everyone has to draw it.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think they actually tried. This is the problem here.
With what they had.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I think they actually tried. That's the weird part here. Is I can take the previous episode with the whole AI situation and be like, I get it. I get what you were trying to convey emotionally.
Yeah.
This one, however, I actually get kind of also, I think, what they were trying to convey emotionally.
Well, okay. Yes. No, I think I know what you're talking about, too.
So the point of this episode, take the plot entirely out of it. Like, throw it out of your mind. But what they were trying to convey emotionally, I think, was that Oto had not been aware of how badly she was doing in the past.
Yeah.
And there was a version of her in her mind or in another world or whatever that very much considered killing herself.
Right.
Regardless of whether she plot-wise did or not, the point was in her mind she probably had made the decision at some point. Koito saved her.
Right.
The idea, though, that what saved her was that young, just simple, innocent love of another person coming by and being like, come on, why don't you step out of those shoes and come run over here with me?
Yep.
It doesn't really matter plot-wise that much, how it all works. But I think they also wanted to communicate the feeling that Oto saves herself here.
Right, and that's thematically what the whole point of the show has been with all of 4 of the girls, right? Is that they need to kind of face their own issues with help and emotional support from each other, but it's also something where they go into the things and they do battle and the battles are the representations of their own inner struggles and things like that, right?
Yeah, I think we can actually take the plot of the beginning of the show quite literally and say,
I think so too.
No, it was that they needed to become familiar with the idea of helping someone else out, having resolved their death.
Right. Okay,
so that then they could then go back to whatever reality was and be slightly more equipped to handle just the struggles of life.
12th step kind of thing. Yeah.
But it's not specifically teaching someone the thing that you're trying to get over. It's just the connection. It's just the connection with another person that's struggling. You don't need to be a teacher.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I think that's a great point. And because in I feel like it can kind of stem from that idea of you give other people way more credit than you give yourself. You know, like if it's something where someone else is struggling with something or is down on themselves, you can be like, no, you're awesome, right? But you won't be able to say that about yourself, right? If someone then turns and says good things about you, then you can be like, oh, no, I don't, no, stop. I don't feel comfortable accepting that, you know? And that's kind of a journey that, well, Oto specifically has definitely been on. And so, you know, yeah.
I think you can get something out of this episode and the show even as large if you focus way less on the plot of things and not even really the messages I think they're actually trying to communicate here. I think some of the messages go screwy off into other areas.
We did have some janky pull the plug stuff previously.
Well, we just had some stuff
among other things.
Felt a little bit
Yeah.
But I think the emotion of this is in some pretty interesting places.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's always stood out to me about this show is the fact that the catchphrase of Oto is "Now I'm really mad." Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like the idea that the acknowledging of the turbulent, chaotic emotions within her is the path to success, right?
Yeah.
It's then you can start making sense of it, right? Then you can actually start dealing with it.
You just need to bring it out.
Yeah, you just need to bring it out. Because if you hold it inside yourself, then it'll just hurt you and the people around you by extension. Yeah.
I think that's partially with a lot of the imagery and a lot of the specific kind of is motifs the right word?
Theme is an idea. A motif is a specific thing that you use to communicate an idea.
Like an egg, basically.
Yeah. An egg is a motif. Yeah.
I think the egg is a great motif, actually, for the idea that they're isolated and cooped up alone in a cramped space,
and they need to break out.
And they need to be broken out by someone else coming by.
Sure.
Right, because they're casting something down on that. And
right, because they were all in those points where they weren't able to fully help themselves.
Yeah, and the end of this episode kind of left us on that cliffhanger of showing one of the Otos essentially in a cramped, dark place.
Right.
Alone with a tiny crack of light, basically saying, hey, there's a sliver of hope for her.
Yeah.
But this is kind of a bit of a cliffhanger. And also a nothing answer as to regards to the struggles that was overcome before. But they did give us the cathartic end to the teacher.
I wouldn't call that cathartic, but okay.
Well, I think the fact that the teacher got obliterated by glorious animation.
But it wasn't even the teacher. It's a representation of the teacher.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We're not going into the real world and pulling a Glock out and
But,
you know.
But it's
little Uzi and
right.
No, we're not.
But for what we can expect to get, kind of a thing.
Jacob, you're not getting a drive-by as much as you want on this guy.
Well, no, the thing that kept it from being cathartic for me is that it felt like it was something where the teacher, they're basically saying, with all the creepy shit that happened, the teacher's actually not a bad dude, and all that stuff is maybe a misinterpretation, and that it's actually just Oto's, like her emotional resolution with regards to the teacher, which...
Yes, that did potentially...
thrown out. Now, I'm just going to chalk that up to the fact that confusion with the writing, and they didn't have time to do everything, so they do that rather than without not necessarily thinking about necessarily what that can kind of communicate, but, you know. Yeah.
In some ways, much like the reality in this world, I choose to essentially ignore certain parts of reality and substitute it with my own.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the fights in this episode, the animation was... I'm surprised it took this long, but it finally started getting really janky, right?
Yeah,
and then,
that's true.
You know, you could see the production issues,
I think
right?
it wasn't actually as much the animation, it was just the way the directing was basically setting up certain scenes that just didn't work.
Yeah, but there were certain things...
very little animation in the scene.
Right.
Or the editing transitioning between scenes was really just...
But, like, there was that part where the paint ate away at, like, the benches or whatever, and it was, like, 3 frames to, like, eat away the bench, which, like, stood out a lot. And then, like, when Oto was, like, running, it was, like, very, like, stiff running, and then when she,
that's been done in this show before.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because running animation with actually showing the full body is hard.
Well, right. And then, like, when she fell into the water, it was just sort of like a still image of her, like, impact and falling and
Yeah,
everything.
those feel like
Yeah,
I get
things
what
that
you're
are
saying,
things
but-
that are smaller and not necessarily as big of a deal, but it's like, okay, yeah, they're there.
Yeah,
But
to me, it felt more like it wasn't specifically the animation, but it was like something from like the top down was really bad because it was just scenes were just entirely whack. Like
Yeah,
the very first
that
scene,
first
just
scene
that
was-
constant zoom in for like 45 seconds or something.
yeah, it's like, oh, like
Like
Yeah.
I feel like this might have been more of a failure from like the very top all the way trickling down into all the other.
I wouldn't be
parts being
surprised.
created, because
yeah,
this episode was a nightmare.
Oh,
of
it
like,
was.
of like all kinds of issues.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, as like a story analyzer, I don't really put much stock or weight in the stuff that I can only tell that something was off, but I don't know
right.
why.
Yeah, we know a lot more about storytelling than we do about animation, and even then,
Not
yeah,
even that much. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So yeah, if anything, it was something where the nature of the show and having a lot of fights that are then like they're emotionally satisfying because of the struggles that the characters are going through when they go into those fights. This was kind of like a good example in my mind of how then once you don't necessarily care as much about the characters or the stakes or how the conflict is relevant to the people,
Sure.
then the spectacle kind of loses its glamour.
Loses its charm.
Yeah, because in like I couldn't even see the characters as like people at this point. I'm just like, okay, yeah, they're drawings. So like when Oto loses her eye, it's like, okay, gruesome, but okay,
Yeah.
is it supposed to mean something since heterochromia was the thing that she always had a problem with, and now her eye's been ripped out or whatever? Why specifically her eye? And like, yeah.
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 I very much just want to say, as like my final real bit of serious analysis here, is that this show very much feels like this was trying to be a finale, and yet also gave us nothing that was built upon, I would say, really from the full promise of the beginning of the show, and thus feels also like a sequel bait episode.
Yeah,
Or a
yeah.
sequel
I'm gonna go to the other realities and like I'll see you again and okay, like
I want actually at this point in the next thing that we get, which isn't an episode, it's like an OVA or like a special or something. I want that to break this again in a way that is so simple, so boring, and so straightforward, and just being like, nah, like we were high on cocaine. Like that was weird.
Right.
Here's the actual simple answer. And we'll leave maybe some open-ended questions that we can kind of have you guys like think about. And I'll be like, ooh, I can get some good discussion out of that. Because from this here, there are so many things that I felt like I was like, ooh, nope. They're contradicting that. They're making it all confusing, and they're muddling the point. I don't know how to discuss that.
Something that I was actually legitimately excited to see happen, and once they started doing that, I was like, oh, awesome. But then the way they did, But is I was realizing we need to talk with the mom.
Yeah.
We need to talk with just being like, hey, mom, I'm, and just start unpacking things, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, that needs to be gotten into. Whether it's the thing of, I had a crush on my teacher and now you're engaged and stuff, or my friend killed herself, I almost killed myself, how do I deal with this? Like just all the things that she's going through, and oh, my friends are, all this crazy stuff is happening. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But so when they sat down and like started talking, I was like, ooh, yes. But then it ended up just being kind of like her, like being like, you deserve happiness too, which is like, if you forget everything about the teacher and who he's been set up to be and seem like, then I'm like, okay, cool, that's good. That's something where basically Oto is resolving within herself. Shit, I had this crush on my teacher, and I kind of made it so that then I was keeping myself distance from my mom, which isn't helping when I'm going through tough stuff, but also that's not really fair to her, because like, okay, she does deserve to be happy. Like, cool, okay, yeah, because it was causing issues for it would cause issues for even in a vanilla sense, because her life is getting disrupted, because now there would be this new person coming into their family, basically, that she even in a neutral situation, wouldn't necessarily care for or care about or whatever. But yeah.
I loved the joke of the final third iteration AI that Frill created was like
Oh yeah.
the most like gobbledygook name ever.
Yeah, it's like wait, what happened to dot and hyphen? Like
hyphen,
it's like that was a pretty straightforward naming convention. Why is this one something completely different? Like okay.
But okay. We had to have also a little bit of talk and stuff with Uraraka and Aka or whatever.
The two mannequins.
They basically said kind of nothing. Like they said some stuff that was like, oh yeah, that could maybe be followed up in the next thing. Okay, I kind of remember that a little bit.
Weirdly enough, it felt like it's like, okay, these two are actually kind of the main characters all of a sudden, and we're gonna try and make sure that their characterization is fleshed out. Because the idea of like inconsistent, because like the idea of, hey, why are we doing this? It's like, oh yeah, that's a great thing to talk about. There was a schism that was introduced in that previous episode between the two of them. Cool, yeah, talk about that. But at the same time, I don't care because you guys are side characters at best, and I would really much rather get development with the characters who were mind broken in the previous episodes, and
they get thrown to the side.
And
They're
that's
difficult to write. You know what? Actually, I want to go out and maybe throw out a bit of a baseless accusation towards the creators of this.
Oh yeah,
but I think they inserted themselves into the overseers. Post. Post time, not time skip, the recap episode. And
I would agree.
You get what I'm saying here?
To what extent? Because I feel like you could take that. I feel like you could take that in a few different ways.
I feel like Frill is a stand-in for this show.
I like it.
And they created Frill and had no idea what they were wanting to do with it. I'm using they as the impersonal, non-specific, direct, just entity of whoever.
The amalgamation of all the people that,
Or probably the main person who had this idea that was either writing it, directing it, or what have you.
Right, the people steering the ship.
Yeah, I'm assuming there was one person eventually, once you get up to the top of this, that was, steering the ship, basically. I think that they basically kind of accidentally maybe showed some really weird aspects of their psyche with the way they ended this, and it feels a bit gross under those lens. In a way that I don't really want to try to find evidence for. That's why I'm saying it's a baseless accusation of sorts. But I got the longer we were giving like time and focus to these two guys, and the kinds of things that they would come up with as like their like, oh, this is something that we're like, this is the way it is. I got some some gross.
I've been getting gross vibes from like the past few episodes of this show. But that
all being said,
who can say with some of that stuff. But okay.
But okay.
And what blows me away is that I'm guessing it was probably because of maybe like a contract or something like that, but where it's like, oh, we need to have 13 episodes or whatever. But the fact that there's an episode after this, why? Like, it's enough of a train wreck already. Why would you, after then waiting, then go back and try and like if you were going to do that and take that break, why didn't you do it instead of or after the recap episode?
Probably because of some actual
contractual things. Yeah, it's probably a lot easier to like fit one extra episode in somewhere than to like do 4 or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah.
But all right. Yeah. Y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the final episode's reaction and discussion right now, go check out the link in the description below. For our Patreon, you can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. All this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if ain't that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.